Tim Petrowich for Dateline Marion. Our guest is Marion head football coach Kerry Martin, and the Wildcats coach now 0-2 after back-to-back losses in Champaign last week, 42-13 to Centennial. And I think last week kind of reinforced what we talked about before the game, in that there were signs during the game, especially in the second quarter, where your team played really well and other times not so well, and there wasn't that consistency of putting 4 quarters together.
Yeah, that's definitely been a problem, and they're a very good football team, and I just felt, the game's 19-13 in the third quarter, and we've got the ball at the 32-yard line, and that's a difference maker. We just picked off a pass, we were, moving towards the red zone, and I felt Centennial went to a level, and we didn't match that level of intensity. They dug in and really stepped. From that moment on, we went backwards in that drive, eventually got a punt blocked, and the momentum really shifted after that. And I thought their players threw the switch, as we say, and we didn't respond very well. I thought we had a nice little comeback in the second quarter to get back in the ball game, and I thought the kids played their best quarter of the year in that time. And, football's a 4-quarter game. You can't be happy with playing a quarter here and a quarter there, and so it's about consistency. It's about making plays, and we saw a little more of that this week, but not enough.
Well, and we've talked a lot about how football can turn quickly, and it did. You got the interception right there. Right. Really a big momentum. The momentum continued in your favor, and then all of a sudden it turned completely the other way.
It did, and that's the game. Big Mo can jump sidelines pretty quickly, and so. We needed to take advantage of that opportunity. The last time we got a turnover in the ball game, we tried to run a flea flicker and got a penalty. They got a pass interference penalty, and that drive was good for us. But other times you have opportunities and you don't make things happen. And we needed a big play right there on offense, and we didn't get it. And I felt like they really asserted themselves as the better team at that moment. And we didn't have much bounce back after that. We kind of unraveled, I think, a little bit after that momentum changed.
You only got to see him for a half because he got injured late in the first half. How good is Jimmy Fitzgerald?
He's really good. He's a special quarterback. He's got all the things you're looking for. You can tell he's a leader. He can run, he can throw. He was accurate. His footwork was good. I mean, there weren't a lot of things I could look at and say that here's a deficiency in this kid. I mean, he's an excellent football player, and I know that the University of Illinois got themselves a good recruit.
In the time he was there, he ran, I think, for 3 touchdowns. He threw the ball well, threw for almost 200 yards in just a half, and really can do a lot of things. But he's surrounded by a lot of good players, too. They're not the 6th-ranked team in Class 6A for nothing.
Well, you're right about that, and I think that's the misunderstanding, that he's a one-man football team. He had a lot of weapons to throw the ball to. He had a great running back. Their nose guard was as good a nose guard as I've coached against ever. I mean, he really gave us fits, especially in the second half, and they were a good football team overall. They're well coached. They were well disciplined. It was difficult to fool them on things, and they're smart football players. And I go back to the pass interference call and the flea flicker we threw. It was either pass interference or give up a touchdown. He was smart enough to pull our receiver down, and they had some football savvy about them. So that's a good sign. That means they're a well-coached team.
Well, and not only that, but when Fitzgerald got hurt, the backup quarterback came in, Reisinger, who was a receiver going in. He executed the offense. They still ran plays. They changed their playbook a little bit, but they still threw the ball and ran the ball, and were just as effective in the second half.
Yeah, and I think what I noticed too, you're exactly right, but I think the other players also went to a different level. The running back, which had not been a huge factor, said, "Give me the ball." If Jimmy Fitzgerald's not in there to run the ball, I'll run it, and he broke tackles and made things happen. So I was impressed at the level of the play by the defense, how they cranked it up after his injury, and I think the offense players went to another level. And I was speaking to a guy from Centennial. He said, I haven't seen them raise to that level in a very long time. So they're going to be a force in 6A if they can stay healthy.
Maybe that's a good sign that you forced them to raise to that level.
Good for us, right? But certainly the final point I think about Centennial for me is that we schedule games like that to get better. We play teams like that week 10, week 11 in the playoffs, and well, lately we haven't been prepared for that level of ball club late in the season. So you got to play them during the season to compete with them at the end of the season. And I'm hoping that these first two ball games against Central and Centennial have made us a better football team, even though we're 0-2. Our hope is it's made us a better football team. We're going to find out Friday.
Now, going into game 3, into week 3, you are 0-2. How critical is that now? I mean, you kind of suspected, I guess, that it was possible to be in this position. So I don't know that it's broken your season yet, but you're to a point now where you really need to turn things around.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. I mean, you got to earn your way in the playoffs, and certainly our mission right now is the old cliche of one game at a time. We have to go out and get a win against Harrisburg, and we got to figure out then how to go week by week and win these ball games and get our record back to 500 and then get over 500 and keep working and keep improving in the process. So it's going to be an uphill climb, but sometimes challenges like this bring out the best in players and hopefully in coaches, and it is what it is. I'm proud to be a part of a sport that you have to earn your way in. If we end up not having any more than 3 or 4 wins, we don't deserve to make the playoffs. I mean, we have to earn our way in, and we've talked to the kids, been very straightforward about the fact that this is the beginning of a 7-game season now. Forget the first 2 games, and hopefully they made us better. We got to go out and start playing better football.
And we've talked about adversity at times too, and I know you're not going to fall back on this at all or talk about this as an excuse, but how adverse is it to drive 3 hours 2 nights in a row with the storms on Friday night, something you never expect, and talk about making that adjustment.
Well, I'm not going to sit here and tell you it was easy. It wasn't easy. Maybe I think going twice wasn't so bad. The 2 Fridays, I think going back on Saturday was tough. I mean, there's and again, we're not trying to tell anybody we lost to Centennial because of a second bus ride. That's taking nothing from them. But our kids handled it well. I mean, I don't know how much it affected our performance. I don't know if you'll ever know that. But I know it does have some impact. You could feel it. Anytime you get up for a game and have to get back down and get back up again, and plus you add, 9 hours on a bus, 3 there, 3 back, then 3 back there again in a very short amount of time, it's got to have some effect. But I think our kids handled it well. We didn't use it as an excuse. The kids never talked about it. They just hung in there and followed the schedule and did what they had to do.
You play a Harrisburg team now this week that comes in 0-2, and they've really struggled to score points. 12 points, I think, against Mount Carmel in their first game. Last week they were shut out by a DuQuoin team that is down some, but I mean that's a big rivalry with Harrisburg and DuQuoin. But we've seen in the past that when it looks like Marion should have what would seem like an easy win against Harrisburg, Harrisburg really comes ready to play the Wildcats.
Yeah, they do. And I it's interesting that the best Harrisburg team in years we played better against 2 years ago here than any other year. And then other years where it looks like we should have a bigger advantage, they've come right out, fought us tooth and nail. So, every game is big for us. This ball game is big for us. Nobody around here is looking at their record or their opponents, and we know that Harrisburg will come to play. They're fighting for their playoff life, just like we are. We're in the same situation. Neither team can afford to be 0-3. So it is what it is. I mean, we're going to go out and play hard and scratch and claw and try to get a win.
Is this the same type of Harrisburg team that we've seen in the past as far as the style of play?
Yeah, I think it's similar to them. I think, they're always a physical team. They've always got good size. I see that in them now. They're not going to back away from a challenge. So I think it's very similar. I think, I've got 2 films on them, and they show, like we have in some ball games we've lost, some potential to move the ball and do some things. And I'm sure Coach Roper's preaching the same thing we are right now. It's about consistency.
And I know they're a team that their first priority is to obviously pound the ball and keep possession of the ball, but they are a team that has been capable of throwing the ball and getting some big plays that way too.
They haven't thrown it much this year, and maybe less than they have in the past. So they really relied on the run game quite a bit. And I think, so we'll see what happens. He may try something different against us. I don't know, but Jason's a good coach. He's always got a good game plan, and I'm sure that he'll have something. He'll see something on film he can try to take advantage of. But our focus is so much on ourselves right now, trying to get our guys more consistent as I said, until we take care of that, our opponents don't matter quite as much. We're going to look at what they do and try to get some schemes against them, but it's about execution and it's about getting Marion better.
It's 2 days into the practice week. Have you noticed a greater sense of urgency early this week in practice?
Well, we had our best Monday practice of the year yesterday, so I mean we're off to a good start. The problem we've had is we've been hit or miss in practice. We have a good day and then a not so good day and back and forth. I think we're trying to convince the kids, that we need 4 days of good practice. I mean, Monday through Thursday needs to be good if you want to play really well and you want to put 4 quarters together on Friday. So they seem to have bought into that. They started last week. I thought Wednesday and Thursday last week were good. Wednesday was probably our best day of the year as far as practice. So I'm hoping it carries over to this week. We have a good day today, and Wednesday and Thursday we can finish and put together our first strong week of practice, which I believe almost always translates to a much better performance.
You're at home this week. First home game of the season, first of 3 in a row. Some new additions to the stadium this year. A good reason to be excited about the home opener.
It is. The kids are excited. I mean, you go on these Champaign bus rides and you make 3 of them in 8 days. I mean, the kids are excited to be home. They're excited to not be on a bus. They're excited to kind of debut the new stadium. Last year we had the turf and the scoreboard. This year we got the new bleachers and the Health Education Center and the pavilion and the end zone. So there's all kinds of things that we're going to get to showcase on Friday. And most of all, hopefully we can match on the field the facilities with a really good performance.
The Wildcats playing the Harrisburg Bulldogs. We've kind of, I think, maybe intentionally tried to stay away from mentioning specific names in this game. It goes back to the fact that everybody, offense, defense, and special teams, really has to come together at this point to turn this from an 0-3 start to a 1-2 start going in.
Yeah, it's a team thing. I mean, I can't point to a few players that are playing good and some that aren't. Everybody needs to get better. We've held the coaches accountable. I've held myself accountable. The players. I mean, it's a team effort from the top, myself, down to my sophomore players, and we've got to get better. We're working to get better. But yeah, there's no finger to point at. And we talked about this with our kids that it's one of those things where we all see other people need to improve, but make sure you check in that mirror and ask yourself, what can I do better? Because everybody's in need right now of being a better player, a better coach. And I think if you can humble yourself in that way and understand you got to get better, then good things can happen. And so we saw that on Monday. I'm hopeful it'll carry over to today.
And I think the team that takes this 0-2 start and turns it into a 6-3 or 7-2 season, goes into the playoffs strong, that is a team that's could potentially be much better than a team that might go into the playoffs 8-1 or 9-0.
Well,
sliding through.
I agree with you, and I that's one of the things we tried to tell them is that these first 2 games, we can take them 2 different ways. We can let it hurt our season overall, or we can let it help our season and make us a better team. And if you take what happened in the first 2 games and you try to use the things you experience there to get better, then you could be a better team at the end of the season, even though you got 2 early losses. But if you begin to point fingers and blame and do the things that kind of destroy the team effort, those 2 losses will just add to more losses. So we're trying to use the first 2 ball games, win or lose, in a positive fashion, and hopefully on Friday we'll be able to see the difference.
Game time 7 o'clock Friday. The Wildcats play the Harrisburg Bulldogs. It's the final game before the conference season start, the first home game of the year, first of 3 in a row, and we look forward to seeing you and the Wildcats at home on Friday.
Can't wait. Thanks.
Coach Kerry Martin, the head coach of the Marion Wildcats. For Dateline Marion, I'm Tim Petrowich.